Hi all. Chapter 7, Classification of Elements, the Periodic Table. This 10th class 7th chapter. First of all, we will understand the title of this chapter, Classification of Elements. Classifying means separating the elements, arranging the elements. Already we know many elements, we have around 118 approx. These elements are kept in a periodic table. These elements are not kept randomly anywhere. They are being arranged. How they are arranged, we will understand with an example. For example, I will read this examples which is given in the page number 122, first page of this chapter. A medical shop contains a vast number of medicines. The shopkeeper finds it difficult to remember all the names of the medicines that he has. When you go to a medical shop and ask the shopkeeper for a particular medicine, he hands over it to you without any difficulty. How is it? The shopkeeper arranges the medicines in the alphabetical order so that he can give the medicine easily without any difficulty. In the same way, when you go to any super bazaar for buying any grocery, we don't find any difficulty for selecting or getting the grocery what we want without any difficulty. Why? Because they are arranged, goods are arranged in a systematic way. In the same way, in this periodic table, in our periodic table, you can see this is a periodic table. This periodic table has elements. These elements are not arranged randomly, they are arranged according to their properties. How they are arranged, we will understand in the further chapter. This arrangement of these all elements like hydrogen, helium, lithium, gold, silver, these all are elements, metals. Metalloids are there, non-metals. How they are arranged, we will understand it in this chapter. I will read it. Think of Super Bazaar. When you step into it, you see a particular arrangement of goods inside it. When you look for a needed grocery, you can select it easily. From the above observations, you understand that for any system involving several things, a particular order of arrangement of those things is essential. Even in chemistry, from the earliest times, scientists have been trying to classify the available elements in a limited number of groups on the basis of their properties. About this paragraph, you will understand in the further topics about properties of elements. First of all, in the introduction of this chapter, classification, we understand what is classification, what is meant by classification, what are elements. As I said, hydrogen, helium, these elements, metals, metalloids, non-metals, these all are elements present in this periodic table. This, as I said, this is the periodic table. We will understand which elements are present, how they are arranged in detail in the further chapter. Need for the arrangement of elements in organized manner. Why we need to arrange these elements in an organized manner? Let us see. Robert Boyle 1661 defined an element as any substance that cannot be decomposed into further simple substance by a physical or chemical change. At his times, about 13 elements were known. At the time of Robert Boyle, only 13 elements were known. As I said, around 118 elements approx yearly are present. In the time of Robert Boyle in 1661, there were just 13 elements were known. Towards the end of the 18th century, by the time of Lavoisier, another 11 elements were discovered. Another 11 elements were discovered by the end of the 18th century, by the time of Lavoisier. By 1865, about 63 elements were known, and by 1940, a total of 91 elements from natural sources and another 17 elements synthetically were obtained. Natural sources, which we get from nature, and the 17 elements, another 17 elements we got artificially, not naturally. Total of 91 elements from natural sources, from nature, and another 17 elements obtained synthetically, not naturally. By including synthetic elements, there are more than 115 elements. As the number of elements increased, it became difficult to keep in a memory the chemistries of individual elements and their compounds. As the number of elements was increasing, it was difficult to the scientists to remember their chemistries and their compounds. What are the chemistries we will see in the further chapter. In previous classes, we had learned the classification of elements in metals and non-metals. Example, in the previous classes we learned in earlier classes, in 8th class standard, 8th class, how metals are classified, metals are separated, elements are separated, and metals and non-metals. Example, sodium, potassium are metals, sulfur, chlorine are non-metals. But this classification had many limitations. Why this classification has limitations? Aluminium has some metallic properties and some non-metallic properties. Elements of this type are considered as metallites or semi-metals. So there was a need to classify them in other ways. Hence, chemists started to frame ways to group these elements and compounds on the basis of their physical and chemical properties. We know that aluminium is a metal. Even it is a metal, it is not even sorry we learned that aluminium is a metal, but coming to this part of this chapter, aluminum has the properties of both metals and non-metals, some metallic properties and some non-metallic properties. We learned in the 8th standard that some metals are sonorous, lustrous, and malleable. Non-metals are ductile. Non-metals are brittle. Brittle means they can break easily. The same way, aluminium has its metallic property and non-metallic property. So scientists started to separate the elements on the basis of their physical and chemical properties. Physical and chemical properties. If you see here, in this para, in the beginning of the 18th century, Joseph Louis Proust stated that hydrogen atom is the building material and atoms of all other elements are simply due to combination of number of hydrogen atoms. Here he said that hydrogen atom is a building element. Hydrogen is a building element. Like when you think of helium, hydrogen next to helium. When you add one hydrogen to another hydrogen, we get helium next element. The same way, when you add one more hydrogen to the helium, you get lithium, and so on. Third element, lithium.